He did. Touchdown, Detroit Lions.
You're listening to the One Pridecast. Hello and welcome to another episode of the One Pridecast. I'm your host, Tori Petry, and I'm joined on the other line by Mike O'Hara. Mike, I hope you're doing well, and happy Veterans Day to you.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. That was a long time ago, but still some memories of it.
Absolutely. Well, we are recording on Veterans Day. Might not be Veterans Day when people are listening, but I wanted to make sure that we wished you a happy one, and we're happy to have you here this morning on the podcast. Mike, we've got a bit to talk about with the Lions. It was a tough week for them this last week in Minnesota. What did you take away from that game on Sunday?
That they absolutely got thrashed. Every time they made even a slight move, Minnesota just answered with something. I think, a couple of things that stand out to me, and I think to everybody else, and we've heard this now for 2 weeks, but, plays defensively, 10 men on the field. They got torched for a 70-yard run by Dalvin Cook on one of them. That was an issue against Minnesota. It was an issue of the previous week in the loss to the Indianapolis Colts. No excuse for it. It's a complete breakdown. Corey Unlund, defensive coordinator, owned up to it when he talked to the media earlier this week. But, I've had enough. There's nothing against him. This is not personal or anything like that. But I had enough of the apologies and all that. It's production. It's performance. That's what I want to hear, not mea culpas. And I think he'd agree with that. I'm not being too harsh when I say that. And then couldn't stop the run again. They had a couple of weeks in there where they were, fairly good at it. But last week, Dalvin Cook, was it 22 carries for 600 or 600? It seemed like 600.
It did.
Did it 206 yards. But, Tori, the thing that bothered me about that, he didn't really have to work to get those yards.
Yeah.
I mean, when I say work, of course it's work. Don't get me wrong. You're getting hit and all that. But the previous week against Green Bay, they're just okay defense. There's nothing special about Green Bay. But he had 30 carries for 163 yards. He had 22 carries for 206 yards against the Lions. And he just kind of ran through them. He didn't see like those where you get buried in the pile and you just keep moving the pile forward. It's 5 yards, it's 6 yards, it's 7 yards, it's 8 yards until he finally get him stopped. It just kind of ran through him and then ran away from him and kind of waved goodbye. So I didn't think they were competitive up front. And that's, to me, at this stage of the game, now 3-5 after 8 games. It was just disappointing in every way.
Yeah, Matt Patricia was asked this week what he felt like he was working to have as their calling card for this team. And one of the things that he mentioned that he wanted to have really strong special teams. Well, they're doing that. They do have strong special teams, save for the struggles that Matt Prater has had. But on the punt teams, they have looked really good. 3 blocked punts in the last 2 weeks. But one of the other things he said is that they want to be really good in the run game, both on defense and on offense. Well, we've just seen these struggles in the run game so far this season, and I talked about this on the podcast before, and I've talked about it on Tori's Take, and the games that they've won have been the games where they have been able to stop the run, and it kind of seems like that is where their defense starts, and when they can't do that, they struggle across the board.
I think every player and every coach at every level of football will tell you defensively the first thing you want to do is stop the run, because then you can get the opponent into favorable down and distance. And there's a big difference at every level, especially the pro game. There's a big difference between 2nd and 8 and 2nd and 2 and 2nd and 3, because the offense is then dictating to you when they've got, when they've got 2 shots to get a first down instead of making up yardage. They call that being ahead of the sticks. Well, when you're behind the sticks, it's a tougher game for the offense. When you're behind, when the offense is behind the sticks, it's a better game for the defense. And it doesn't guarantee anything. It really doesn't mean automatically you're going to get off the field, but the percentages are with you, and the percentages have been against the Detroit Lions since opening day, and they continue to be so. Before we go on, I'm not exempting the offense either. They had opportunities too. And about Matthew Stafford, I thought he had an incomplete pass on his first throw of the game and then completed 16 in a row. And I thought he was on his game. That was pretty much a short passing game, which I wasn't surprised. It really wasn't. You don't have Kenny Galladay, and it's really not a team with a lot of speed at wide receiver. You've got that's what you get. But then he had, back-to-back interceptions I think it was late in the third quarter, early fourth quarter, and He said one was a bad decision, one was a bad throw. Well, you're 0 for 2. That's not good. And so that I don't think he was on his game at all. Whether he was distracted by the COVID, that's been reported and all that, who knows? I would be, young man, 32 years old with 4 kids at home, one of whom had taken a fall and had a concussion. I'd be distracted too. And so I'll give Matthew a mulligan on that one.
Yeah.
Also, because I like him too, full disclosure. All right?
Well, we know that. We know that.
I want, all right? Someday you might get one.
I can only hope, Mike. Yeah.
Hope away.
I mean, this guy went through a lot last week.
Yep.
I mean, it's a pandemic, and to hear that you've been exposed to it is scary in itself, and then to not be able to be there for your family, that is a lot to take on personally. And these guys are professional athletes. Everybody goes through things that in their personal lives that affect themselves and in their careers as well. But, for him to go through what he did was a lot. And he recognized that the everyday person goes through much harder things sometimes, and that he was grateful to have a job and grateful that his family was healthy. But you're right, that does wear on a guy, and I can't blame him for the stress that was, being out of the building all week and then being expected to step in and play on Sunday.
Yeah, and look, he's played a lot of games, a lot of football in his life, but that doesn't mean you step in and you're completely at ease with the game plan. Now it looked like that, for the first half, and I thought he had brought them back. This was, to me, I'd call it more of a telling point than a turning point in the game, Tori. But they get a long drive to a touchdown with a minute and 19 left in the half to make it 13-10, and I can't give enough credit to the special teams because they've been just great the last couple of weeks, and they've been building to that all year. Miles Killebrew gets down on the ensuing kickoff and tackles the return man at the 13-yard line. Mind you, 13-yard line.
Yeah.
And it's 1st and 10 at the 13 with a minute, and was it 9 to go or something like minute 10, whatever it was. You get a three and out. It's 13-10. You get a 3 and out, and you're probably going to get a field goal attempt at the worst, and maybe a touchdown.
Right.
The way Matthew Stafford drives the team in the last minute of the games and a half. And what do? Six plays, they go 87 yards for a touchdown. It ran right through them.
Yeah.
It's just awful.
Yeah.
Just terrible.
Absolutely. I agree that was a struggle point in the game because you were only down by 3 at that point, and then to go into the locker room with the deficit of 10 instead of being down by 3 when all you had to do was hold them off for one more minute, that definitely was, like you said, a telling point in the game. But then even after that, they were only down by 17 in the third quarter or so, and they at that point had a missed field goal from Matt Prater and the 2 interceptions in the red zone. And those were all 3 missed opportunities too that would have equaled out the score.
Even if they got 9 points. By the way, I'm going to write something down here that you just said. Is it 2 G's or 1 with struggle? Struggle point. I like that. I'm going to use that someday. I really do. Thank you. You've added to
Anytime,
my football
Mike.
Vocabulary.
Well, I didn't give you breakfast this morning, but at least I gave you a new word to use.
Okay. Well, you know what? I'll settle. That's food for thought.
Yeah, there you go.
Or thought for food. But no, you understand that whole sequence there. You're in the game. It's 13-10, regardless of everything that's happened. You are in the football game, and all of a sudden you're out of it that fast. It's like because Minnesota's getting the ball at the start of the third quarter. I mean, those are and Matt Patricia. A couple of things he stresses. One, you want to be a tough team that can control the game, and you do that by stopping the run and running the ball. And the end of the first half and the start of the third quarter, and they lost on every single one of those, every one of them.
Mm. Yeah, there were a lot of things that went wrong on Sunday for the Lions, and I thought that this team was a team that the Lions looked better than on paper. I mean, Dalvin Cook, yes, he's going to get some yards. He's a very good running back. We saw what he could do against Green Bay the week before. But, we talked about it last week, Mike. The weather was a huge element in that game and why, they had to rely on the run game so much. But they came out and did the same exact thing against the Lions inside their dome and, just absolutely dominated that game. And I didn't think that, at least on paper, that's what we should have seen.
Yeah, Tori, you're right. And here's another thing. We were looking at this full bag of games going into that game. against teams with losing records, and you kind of snip off one at a time, and the next thing you know, you're 7-4, and you're knocking on the door of a playoff berth. Now all of a sudden, that door is closed right now. You've got to pry it open in the next 3 games against, Washington, Carolina, and then Houston on Thanksgiving Day. Those 3 are coming up. They've won it combined, I think, off the top of my head, which is very little up there right now, but they've won 8 games, and you know what? And we're looking at them as, okay, here's your chance. Start this week against Washington, who's 2-6, 7, whatever it is. But you know what? Guess what Washington's looking at? Here's our chance to get a win.
Yep.
Guess what Carolina's looking at with 4 straight losses? Chance to get a win. Houston on Thanksgiving Day. You know what? You know what they would like to do? They'd like to win a game before Dallas plays in the second game on national TV, and be the eyes of Texas upon Houston for a change.
This season, there are even more ways to get into the game thanks to Lions Bingo presented by BetMGM. Lion fans can play along for free all season long for the chance to win great prizes, including the grand prize each week of a weekend stay at an MGM Resorts location. Just download the Lions mobile app and register to play Lions Bingo each and every week. Play along during the game, and once you hit bingo, you score. Courtesy of our friends at BetMGM. Learn more and lock in your Lions Bingo board before kickoff by visiting the official Lions mobile app now.
Well, let's turn the page to looking ahead at those next few games.
Yep.
Obviously, you mentioned it. Washington football team visits Ford Field this weekend. This should be a team that the Lions can beat, but like you said, Washington's thinking the same thing about the Lions. They've got some interesting things going on over there with Kyle Allen leaving that game with a pretty bad injury this last Sunday, and then Alex Smith stepped in, which what an inspiring story to see the comeback that he has made from his own injury. And that looks to be who the Lions will face at quarterback this week. What do you make of that switch?
If Alex Smith is Alex Smith of pre-injury, then it's an upgrade at the quarterback position for the Washington football team. And by the way, I hope they keep that name. I like it. Washington football team. It sounds like they relocated a soccer franchise from Birmingham, England, over here to Detroit and called it the football team. I like it, but that's just me. I like things that are different. But Alex Smith, I think everybody in football winces every time he gets hit right now. Just kind of hold their breath, because that was you talk about an injury. He almost cost him his life. He had double-digit operations on that leg, but here he is back and playing. Look, what a player, what a warrior. He's one of those guys that I think even before the injury, people just admired for the way he's persevered in his career to be a starting quarterback wherever he goes. And then he arrives in one place, and all of a sudden they want to get another guy, bring along somebody else. It happened in San Francisco. It happened in Kansas City. And the right thing to do with Patrick Mahomes. I mean, come on. We're talking about one of the all-time greats already in terms of talent and early production. Moves along to Washington, gets hurt, and now he's fighting back to get to be on the field. Didn't play out particularly well. I think he had 3 interceptions last week, but still, it somewhere in him is that ability, that moxie, obviously, and someone that the Lions have to be highly aware of. And then also, you look at that defense, and if I'm the Detroit Lions, I'm thinking, holy cow!
Yeah,
they've had 27 sacks already. My God. 27 sacks. That's not by accident. They don't just hand you that number. You earn that, and man, they earn it at the price of the opposing quarterbacks.
Yeah, and to your point on Alex Smith, I mean, you're right. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes was set to take over there in Kansas City, but he learned under Alex Smith. Alex Smith was kind of the one that brought him along there.
Yep.
At the beginning in Kansas City. So, credit to Alex Smith for that. And just the mental toughness that he has to see Kyle Allen go down with a pretty bad leg injury, knowing that he had one of his own just 2 years before that nearly took his life because of all the complications afterwards. I mean, that is truly incredible, and I absolutely respect the man. I don't think anybody would have blamed him if he would have left football for good after that. And, here he is back to looking like being a NFL starter, which is just a crazy, crazy comeback. So kudos to Alex Smith.
No, absolutely. And, sometimes this is an old line that I read somewhere. You spend your life gripping the baseball or gripping the football, and when you get to the point of where it's time to consider retirement, you find out that the ball is gripping you. And I think that's the case for people like Alex Smith and a lot of guys. You know, the ball really is gripping them. You know, they didn't get into football. Football got into them, and it doesn't go away easily. And that's why, you know, Tori, that's why they're them and where everybody else is everybody else.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I want to talk about that Washington defense as well because, I mean, wow, that defensive line just has so many killers on it. Obviously, Chase Young, Lions fans, would have loved for him to fall past that number 2 spot in the draft and be there for them at number 3, but that certainly wasn't how it played out because how could Washington pass up a talent like that one? And, you know, you've got other guys, Jonathan Allen, Ryan Kerrigan. They've got a very good defensive line, and we've seen this Lions offensive line struggle a little bit in these past couple of weeks.
Oh, yeah, Deron Payne and Montez Sweat. That's Montez Sweat. Now, this is what I'm about to say is meaningless, but he's the guy I projected for the Detroit Lions 2 years ago.
I remember.
In the draft, yeah. I really liked him. I had, you know, obviously, who cares what I think, but I thought he would fit with what they want, and turns out he fits what Washington wants, and probably would have fit what Detroit is looking for, too. But just a really good player. But having said that, the Lions got a really good player, T.J. Hawkinson. Now, you can debate whether you'd rather have a tight end or a pass rush. I get it. You can redraft these things till the end of the year. If I'm the Detroit Lions, I'm more than satisfied with T.J. Hawkinson. But Montez Sweat, what a player. And Ryan Kerrigan, I mean, the guy he just rolls along and rolls along and rolls along. He's at the halfway point of the season. He's got 4.5 sacks, probably on his way, would be on his way to a double-digit season in sacks. You know, what this reminds me of, and it's in the same division, but the New York Giants, when they were really good and you know, going to winning 2 Super Bowls in a space of 4 years, they had all those pass rushers, and they called it the NASCAR front four because they could just, you know, fire up and get to the quarterback. Well, you're an old man. I know you're an old NASCAR person. You like all that.
I am.
Just for you, but that's what they call it, the NASCAR defensive line or NASCAR pass rush, and these guys are like that too. I mean, look, they're on pace for 50 sacks. 50.
That's insane.
50. I think we have 11 here in Detroit. It's a little different, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But we're working on it.
Mike, what do you feel like the Lions need to do in order to turn things around and get a win against the Washington football team?
I'd like to see some energy, more energy from this team. We do a video with Chris Spielman called 3 and Out, and he's made this comment a couple of times. And once he just, which was kind of struck me, but it's a different year, you know, with the COVID-19 and at the very most limited fans in stadiums. But he said he'd like to see the Lions play it at home with the energy they play with on the road. And it kind of struck me because, look, the Lions are 0-3 at home this year, and that's a problem they've had for the last 3.5 seasons. It's not just new to Matt Patricia's teams this year, but it started back in 2017 when they were, I think it was 3-5 at home and missed the playoffs, or 4-4, I forget which it was. Then they went 3-5 and 2-6, and now here they are 0-3 with whatever it is, 6, 7, 8 straight losses at home going back to last year. But energy, play it like it's play it like it's your home. You know why? Because it is. Play it like it's your last chance. You know why? Because it's getting to be your last chance. And,
yeah.
And I'm not talking about this false energy and all that other stuff, false enthusiasm, but really, look, you're doing exactly, as these players, you're doing exactly what you've wanted to do since you were 10 years old, and that's play in the National Football League. And, what a gas that must be every time you go out there to know that you're one of the best of the best. And these are we're talking about world-class athletes, right down to the last guy on the roster. So play like it. Play like it means something to you.
The Lions are actually at the halfway point in their season right now. They've played 8 games. They've got 8 games left to play. I mean, where would you assess this team is at the halfway point, and what kind of chance they have to finish well over the second half of the season?
Well, if you look at them, and if you just watch the games, I'd say they have clearly a mathematical chance to make the playoffs. If there's 7 teams in each conference make it this year, that's one more than last year. The owners' meetings, they had a meeting earlier this week and decided that if there are substantial losses of games because of the COVID virus, then an 8th team will make the playoffs. So is math on their side? I mean, I guess it is. But if you just looked at the way they played, it's kind of hard to have any faith that the possibility will become a realistic possibility because they haven't played well enough to do that. I mean, they've gotten to 3-3 like they did the last 3 wins. They were 3-3 2 years ago, 3-3-1 last year, 3-3 this year, and all of a sudden they can't win another game. They lost 3 straight 2 years ago, 9 straight last year, and here they are on a 2-game bender again. And I think they should beat the Washington football team. They should beat them. They're favored in the betting line, all of that stuff. But, we said before, until they do it, they haven't done it. And so far, they haven't done it.
Well, and here's the other thing, too, about looking at the postseason is there are so many good teams in the NFC this year. I mean,
yep.
The entire NFC West is good. And obviously, Tampa Bay struggled this last Sunday, but the Saints and the Buccaneers both look like they, could be fighting for postseason spots. Obviously, the NFC East is a different story, but there are a lot of really strong teams in the NFC. And just when it comes down to a numbers game, I think it's going to take 10-plus wins to get into the playoffs.
Well, I'd be surprised if it takes 10, Tori. I really would, but I've seen it happen. Look, I've seen teams with 11 wins miss the playoffs in the 6-team format. That happened to the New England Patriots in 2008, the year after they went 16-0 in the regular season and lost in the Super Bowl. They lost out on a tiebreaker at 11-5. It would have happened to the Arizona Cardinals 5-6 years ago. They missed it at 10-6, and when they did the math, they would have missed it also at 11-5. So it happens. It's kind of ironic that you can win a division title in the National Football League with a record of 8-7-1 like the Green Bay Packers did in 2013. That's 7-8-1 as the Rams did. I think it was the Rams or whoever it was one year. Carolina went to the playoffs one year at 7-9 and won a first-round playoff game as the division winner. But you're not going to get a wild card most of the time unless you're above 500. But you got to get there to do it. And I don't right now like the way things are lining up. Now, if they can win these next 3 games and then get into really a tough part of the schedule, closing it out, then they've got a shot. And good for them. Yeah,
that's the tough part for me. I mean, obviously, someone in the NFC East is going to get into the playoffs with less than 10 wins. But, we're talking about wild card spots because the Lions are so far back from winning their division right now. But that's the tough part is their schedule ahead is really hard in December. I mean, depends on how the Bears are playing. That's how they open up December. They've also got the Packers. They've got the Titans. This is a tough schedule for them in December. And they've got the Buccaneers.
Yeah, absolutely. And, look, I'd like to be, for the sake of the team and the fans and the people who really are so invested in this team, obviously the franchise, it's what they do, and then the fans who've been rooting for this team forever. But realistically, it doesn't look good right now, but it looks possible. And to me, possible is, look, I would never give on anything until somebody told me, okay, it's over. And I'm pretty sure these players share that same feeling. That's how they got to where they are.
Absolutely.
Maybe Matthew Stafford could put this gate team on its back and just drag it to the finish line. He's done it before. He's been the one constant here, winning and losing. But he's done it before, and I have faith that he can do it again.
Yeah, there's a long way to go, but obviously we're only halfway through the season. That's really not that far into the season, so there is time to turn things around. So, Mike, let's take a look at Mike's Pick of the Week presented by MGM Grand Detroit, the king of sportsbooks. Mike, I know you talked last week about taking the green chip pick last week. I'm pretty sure you're not going to do a purple chip pick this week, so who are you going to go with?
Well, let's go down the chips, okay? The gold is 1,000, purple is 500, the blacks are 100, the greens are 25, the reds are 5, and the whites are 1. I'm going to bring out a couple of black chips this week, and I'm going to pick the Detroit Lions.
Oh.
Let me put it this way. Somewhere between a couple and a few.
Okay.
Whatever that is. I like the Detroit Lions to come through. It's time. Look, it's time to be a football team at least for a week. Matthew Stafford has been back at practice with a full week. And here's the thing about that, Demetri. Can he play without a week of practice, yes. But you know who needs them? The guys who play with them.
Yeah.
I mean, how much has Marvin Hall played with Matthew Stafford? Not a lot. He's gotten snaps, but not a lot until Kenny Galladay went down. So those guys around him, that's who they need to be with him more than he needs to be with them. So I think Matthew Stafford wins the day. The offensive line keeps the NASCAR pass rush off them. Put the brakes on those guys. Put them in reverse, and the Detroit Lions win, and I think they'll win comfortably.
I like the car analogies there, Mike. I respect it.
Well, it'll be a pit stop there too.
Well, I didn't think you'd go purple, but I'm a little surprised you went black this week. So
Well, multiple blacks now, okay?
All
multiple.
Right. Okay.
I can always top it off too. I can double down at halftime.
All right, we'll see how that pick turns out next week. Mike, thanks so much for joining us on the podcast. We appreciate you.
All right, thanks for having me.
Thanks, guys, for listening to the One Pridecast presented by MGM Grand Detroit, and we will talk to you next week.
This season, there are even more ways to get into the game thanks to Lions Bingo presented by BetMGM. Lion fans can play along for free all season long for the chance to win great prizes, including the grand prize each week of a weekend stay at an MGM Resorts location. Just download the Lions mobile app and register to play Lions Bingo each and every week. Play along during the game, and once you hit bingo, you score. Courtesy of our friends at BetMGM. Learn more and lock in your Lions Bingo board before kickoff by visiting the official Lions mobile app now.